Okay, so back to what I was expounding on in part two. All right, about these aliens, visitors, extraterrestrials, or whatever. Now, they're simply telling you in the Greek mythology that these so-called titans, or the ones that created them or brought them forth, titans, extraterrestrials, or whatever. Now, I have to expound on where extraterrestrials come from. Now, I don't have to go into the space and planets and all of this stuff, because I'm sure you all have heard overwhelming info dealing with that stuff, so I'm not going to even touch that. However, when you're dealing with the heavens and outer space, heaven also is a term that deals with mind, or a certain mind state. So does space. You're in a space right now, and there is space or spaces around you on such a vibratory rate to the point that you can't, or most of us can't even see into them, contact or contact on them, or any form of reference or communication. However, there are spaces in heaven all around you. When you go into a certain place or someone's house, and whatever their mindset in that house, you are in their place. And if they are fine with being negative or fine with being positive or whatever, that's their heaven, that's their space, that's their universe. So you have to know there's a universal law that states, dealing with correspondence, and it says, as above, so below, as within, so without. So just like you have the heavens outside of this planet, so to speak, you have countless heavens existing here at the same time, and we're all tapped into it. We're all connected with it. You have a lot of individuals like to think that there's one heaven. Even in the Bible, it tells you, holy books, it tell you it ain't one heaven. It's several of them. My Father has many mansions thing. So there's several heavens. All right. So when we deal with man, or the original man, once again, and I explained this in another video before, man comes from the word manas, a Sanskrit word. And manas simply means mind, thinker, the intelligible one. And man does not necessarily refer to somebody that is in a physical body, flesh and blood and bone like we are. You have physical body, every plane of existence, from the earthly plane, the emotional plane, the mental plane, the celestial plane. In order for mind to exist, their mind has to have a body, some form of body. Not like yours, of course, or mine, but there's a body. Because that's a place of dwelling also. So your first so-called man, which they talk about in the Bible, the Elohim, the ones that fashioned, the earth and the firmament and all of this stuff, they weren't physical beings in the sense of what you and I know as a physical being. They were etheric, spiritual, mental beings. And they created this universe or world on a certain plane before it manifested in a physical. Now, those of you who have studied the Black Root science can pretty well get where I'm coming from with this. Matter of fact, this Earth or this universe is not the original universe or the prime universe. In certain circles, this is another Earth, or a copy, a parallel existing one to the original prime. And there's many other Earths out there, and there's countless of science and all of this stuff that displays this to you. They even got cartoons like Justice League, Crisis on Two Earths, that is detailing straight up to the scientific, metaphysical, that there are countless existing parallel universes. And one universe, Earth is full of greenery, no industrialized technology like we use now. And then there's another Earth that's been totally desolate and wiped out. A big war. And they've done countless experiments with it. And a lot of this stuff that came forth with some of the things that they have said, or the powers that be that they said they were going to do to us, they didn't happen in this universe. They happened in other universes. However, we couldn't tell the difference because we were so drawn in fear and all this other bull crap that we didn't see what was going on. Okay, so whenever you create anything, any concept or any idea, it's in mind first. And from there, once it's conceptualized in the mind, which is the, in so many words, the mental or the metaphysical egg and sperm. On the mental plane, the spiritual plane, the idea is there. Then what happens after that? Because in the mind, it already exists. The mind doesn't deal with time as we do, or this thing we call time, which is an illusion. So when you conceptualize something in your mind, it already exists. Now the only thing you have to do now is put forth a little effort to see that particular thing through, and then eventually it will manifest in a certain place in space and time. So when I say in certain place, or when metaphysicians say a certain place in space and time, they're not talking about outer space. They're talking about a space here. They're talking about time as measuring the duration that it takes for one thing or one point in so-called chronological order to the next, if I explained that correctly. So that's what's going on there. So when even the creator, the very first creation from the creator itself, it occurred along those lines. It creates in the mind first. When you're writing a book, you're writing the setting and the characters and all that is in mind. And where the reality takes place for the storyline in that book, that's what manifests on the paper. But see, we don't know that the authors, us authors, we have created another universe, and those individuals that are in our book are living in that universe. Still having a hard time accepting that we are gods. Gods create. Gods create and destroy. Matter of fact, the anagram of God deals with that. Okay? Generator, ordinator, or operator, and destroyer. Okay? Now, God knows both good and evil. Now, we have gods or individual gods and goddesses on this planet who don't know the difference between good and evil because they didn't pass certain tests or learn the lesson with certain knowledge or remember. Okay? So, your first so-called aliens, extraterrestrials, were on the mental plane first. And so, you have various different degrees of the mental plane. You got the highest of the highest, and then you got the lowest, which in some legends is referred to as the hell or the bad place where the so-called bad people go. Okay? This is why your entities who are attempting to influence those on this realm to do negative things, they dwell on that level. That's the closest level to Earth. Because those who transition and don't wish to move on most often are the so-called bad ones. And they have to turn into vampires and succubus on that level to feed off the energy off your negative emotions in order to survive on that plane. Okay, so that's where your so-called vampire legends, succubus, nightmare, or nightmare, all that stuff come from. Okay, because you can access that plane at any time if you consciously know what to do, and you especially can access these planes when you are asleep, when the conscious mind is so-called taken offline. Okay, so I'll continue more in the next setting. Hotep.